I was at a banking symposium in 2008, and I was confused by the fact that a lot of the guys were excited about the upcoming recession. One of them finally explained to me that when the recession hits and the market crashes, assets get cheaper, and when you have money, you can buy everything back up. It's like buying up the Monopoly board before there's any hotels or houses. Also, one of the other guys explained to me that when the economy gets bad, the prostitutes get better looking. The point of this horrific intro is that the man thrives on scarcity. He wants there to be desperate people out there. Without scarcity, without all these desperate people around, how's Trump's going to get his Saturday night BJ? How are all these geriatrics going to be running around with supermodels? It's not going to happen. They know they need these desperate people around. Before unions, we were serfs, treated like garbage by the upper class. We peasants endured centuries of abuse and toil, and then one day we woke up. We realized people could join together and fight for better conditions because the man needed us for labor. The man needed us to build his yachts and build his houses and farm his food. So this union movement made it better for everyone. 40-hour work weeks, no child labor, breaks, lunch breaks, pee breaks. It was nice. But the man quickly sought refuge in robots and automation and made a quick comeback, eradicating our leverage. When robots and automation moved into Detroit, it went from a thriving city of 2 million people to 500,000 people, and the city was destroyed. The billionaires' portfolio are growing exponentially, and you can see, if you follow the money, where their revenge scheme is landing them, the middle class. They're building mega prisons, and the sellout doctors are dishing out opiates like a 50s candy store. But we don't have to follow their shitty plan. We can start some plans of our own. And that's what this video is all about, solutions. Possible solutions. I'm going to list them one at a time. All of these ideas have been tried and true. And even though many people have lost faith in the democratic process, they see it as a 2-lane highway going the same direction and funded by the man. Nevertheless, this first concept does utilize the existing democratic process in place. Now let's take the two givens here. We know that the man has robots that take care of his every need, can build his yacht, his house. We know that BlackRock and Jamie Dimon donate millions of dollars to both political parties in every election. So we have to create a third party, a people's party. The major move behind this strategy is the boycott. We're boycotting the two major parties. It doesn't really matter which third party you vote for. We're showing them that they can't buy the election anymore. It could be as simple as nominating all the political science professors in a country and pulling a name from a hat, and that's our president, as long as the two major parties lose control. And while we're on the topic of control, that leads right into concept 2, which is the keeping hold of cash. Because we saw what happened to the Canadian trucker protesters. We saw what happened to the Library of Alexandria. A digital currency that can be deleted by the push of a button is not a good idea for us. And I recommend keeping your change in a closet in case we need to reuse that change. Robots are made from this change. It's the same metals, copper and nickel. It's very valuable, and it gives us a piece of the real deal. Which brings us to our third concept, throwing away your phone. Now, you don't have to do this permanently, but if we all do this at once, even if it's just for a week at a time, we can take back control of their censorship. We can say, you know what, we're going to leave our phones at home for certain hours or for certain weeks, and you're not going to know where we're at and what we're up to, so you don't have an insight into every aspect of our lives. Concept number 4, worker-owned co-ops. This is where you get together with a group of your friends and you either buy a house together or buy a business. One of you can work, say you buy a restaurant, one of you can work the breakfast, one of you can work the lunch, one of you can work the dinner, or one of you can work 1 week, the first week of every month, the other one work the second week, the other one the third. You could do it by month, you could cut up the year. The point is, if you share the responsibility of the restaurant, it doesn't drive you crazy. You're sharing the finance and the expense of the restaurant and the startup cost. These co-ops can be easier for a small middle-class person to get off the ground and to reach economy of scale to compete with the big boys. And also, if we're buying local and buying from each other, you don't have to worry about that because we're helping sustain each other with our own money. Okay, we're going to take it back to the democratic process on this next concept, concept 5, which is taxing robots and automation. I think most people have realized by now that robots are going to have a huge impact on the job market. This new third party should use taxing robots as one of its main platforms. You see, it was my grandparents and your grandparents that built the Hoover dams and the federal highways and pulled all that copper wire for power grids and telecommunications. We did all that work with our bare hands. And now that you have robots and automation to replace us, that doesn't mean we're out of the game. We are still vested. For centuries, our families have paid for this megalopolis via blood, sweat, and tears. And now we are permanent stakeholders, and we must demand that we get our fair share for the efforts we've put in for centuries. And I'm not talking about homeless shelters either. I'm talking about legit coverage for a lifestyle that we deserve. And you know, these guys think just because they replaced us with the robots, now they're entitled to all the money. And the UBI that they kick down to us is going to be minuscule. But we can't let that happen. We have to tax these robots at the same rate that we were being taxed as a population. And we have to take that money and create a floor for humanity for all of our hard work. We cannot let the man flip the script on this one and convince us that they're giving us anything. We've earned this. Otherwise, they're going to turn this place into a Stockholm Syndrome surveillance state. I think most of you can see that this is already happening in China. It's already happening in Australia, where they've convinced the people that, hey, we're giving you free stuff, so now we get to look over you like a nanny state. And that is not the case. As I mentioned before, we have to fight this with everything we have. If that means going back to change, going back to old school ways, if that means fighting the system and protesting, paintballing street cameras, whatever it takes to stop this nanny state from happening. Now, I realize I probably lost a lot of my Aussie friends on that one, but the man really does use safety as a denominator for freedom. And that takes us to concept number 6, which is guerrilla techniques. One guerrilla technique is guerrilla gardening, gardening on land that doesn't necessarily belong to you, whether that be a vacant lot, an abandoned parking lot, a ravine, a fence row, somewhere that's not being used and you see potential. We also have guerrilla marketing, which is handing out flyers that you've printed from a home computer. Something that can get expensive if you get out of hand, but if you keep it simple, black and white messages that are clear and concise, you can get about 8 different flyers per 8.5 by 11 page. You know, just be efficient with it. Get your message across, hand it to people, and this is a great way to get out there and meet people that are like-minded as well. Which brings us to the ancient concept of bartering, which runs hand in hand with guerrilla gardening and guerrilla marketing. Find a group of people with a variety of skills and resources and start trading. Keep it simple. Which brings us to our final concept, and my least favorite, violent revolution, which seems to be inevitable and happens once or twice every century. While trying to discover the root causes of this violent revolution, I uncovered brilliant sayings like, "Poverty is the grandfather of crime," and "The riot is the language of the unheard." Robots have squashed the potency of working-class unions. Luigi Mangione recently proved that middle-class people and working-class people still have leverage. It's just a different kind of leverage. One that hasn't been used since the French Revolution. But do we need it? Is violence really necessary?